Welcome everyone to lecture number 33. Now we have completed what are the directive principles, what are the articles that are present under it, and what are the divisions, categories that we have made. It is not as per the constitution, but we as polity students, we have divided into it. That was article into socio-economic principles, Gandhian principles, liberal principles and all. Okay. Now we are going to see this directive principle through the eyes of that fundamental right, like how this directive principle is correlated or difference is there with this fundamental right. Okay, so first info that I want to give you, that fundamental right constitute limitations upon state action. That in starting when I was teaching fundamental right, I have clearly mentioned that fundamental right is a negation upon the state. Okay, and DPSP is the positive aspects given to the state. Okay, now what does it mean? That fundamental right, it constitutes limitations upon state. Okay, limitations upon state action, while directive principle are instrument of instruction to the government. It is a instrument of instructions to the government. Okay, now what does it mean? That fundamental right always talks about you should not do that, you should not do this, like right to equality is there, you can't snatch equality, you can't discriminate within the people, untouchability should not be there, it should not be practiced. Okay, like that this fundamental right tells us about it. But DPSP is like state should make policies, state can make that kind of policies for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and like that directives are there. Okay, it is a kind of instructions. Okay, now the directive required to be implemented by legislation, while fundamental rights are already provided in the constitution. So first difference that we have seen is this one, that fundamental right constitute limitations upon the state, while the DPSP is an instrument of instruction to the government. Okay, now the another aspect, that directive principle is implemented by legislation. This DPSP is implemented by legislation. Okay, by legislative and all, whatever the laws they want to be passed, that has to be passed through the parliament or through the state legislature also. Okay, but these fundamental rights are already provided in the constitution. Okay, now this the directives are not enforceable in the court. Okay, see, if your language, like you are from a minority section and you are not getting protection from the government or any special treatment from the government, you can't drag the government into the court regarding it, because these things are mentioned under the DPSP. Yes, I'm not talking about with respect to the fundamental right, because with the fundamental right aspect also we have a right to have a religion and have a right to profess our customs, rituals and all. Okay, I'm not talking in that aspect, I'm talking in a special treatment kind of things or reservation kind of things we want. Okay, so let us suppose government is not providing you that, so in that case you can't drag the government in the court. Okay, why you can't drag the government into the court? Because whatever we have studied in the DPSP is not enforceable in the court of law. Not enforceable in the court of law. Okay. Yeah. No. Okay, and it do not create justiciable right in the favor of individuals, while the fundamental rights are enforceable by the court. And regarding the fundamental right violation, you can directly approach to the Supreme Court. Okay, but for other civil law or criminal law, there is a procedure that you have to go with the local courts, then you can go to the high court, and then you can make a appeal to the Supreme Court. Okay, but in the case of fundamental right violation, you can directly approach the Supreme Court also. Okay, so fundamental right are enforceable in the court. Okay, now in case of any conflict between fundamental rights and directive principle, the former should prevail in the court. It means like fundamental right will always be greater than, it means like fundamental right has always be the higher priority when is the DPSP. So let us suppose if there is any law which has been implemented under DPSP and that law is violating your fundamental right, so if that issue went into the court and government will tell that we are trying to implement whatever the mention under the DPSP. Okay, and in that implementation, even if your fundamental right is getting violated, so that thing can be questioned and the fundamental right will be given much more priority than the DPSP, the directive principle or the law that has government has implemented. Okay, in that case that law will become null and void if your fundamental right is getting violated. Okay, now there is a big story, big changes that has happened in the history, we'll discuss in the lecture. Okay, currently just remember that right now whatever the circumstances there, fundamental right will always have the higher priority than the DPSP. Okay, and there were many amendments had happened in the past, we'll discuss it in the sessions. Okay, maybe in this lecture or in the coming sessions. Okay, we'll discuss that. Now there was like in 42nd amendment happened that ensured that though the directive principles themselves are not directly enforceable, it would be totally immune from unconstitutionality on the ground of contravention of fundamental right conferred by Article 14 and 19. Okay, so there is a one scenario that Article 14 and Article 19 will be given less importance with the implementation of DPSP. Okay, we'll discuss it right now, just take it as an info. Okay, and the attempt to confer primacy upon the directive against the fundamental right was foiled by the decision of the Supreme Court in Minerva Mills case, to that effect that a law would be protected by Article 31C only if it has been made implemented under directive in the Article 39B and C and not any of the directive included in the Part 4. Whatever is that, we'll see. See what happened that in Indira Gandhi, during Indira Gandhi time, there were the scenario where law where directive principles were being implemented and that became unconstitutional. But after that, what they have done, they have done multiple amendments were happened. Okay, in that amendments it was like that Article 14 and 19, if it is being violated on the place of implementation of directive principle, so in that case it will not become null and void, it won't become unconstitutional, and for this scenario only fundamental right will have a lesser priority, that fundamental right of 14 and 19 will have a lesser priority than DPSP. Okay, so that was the scenario and that was the conclusion that was made. Okay, so we'll see how these all things happened. Okay, so these are the common difference between the fundamental right and DPSP.